Hello, everyone, and welcome to Respawning Fire, the kick-ass, irreverent gaming podcast from Affable Idiots. I'm one of your hosts, Alexander Kazina, aka Cozy Bear, and this is our... Oh, just crack that can open. It's a Sunkiss. What is it? A Sunkiss? One of those hard Sunkiss.
Zero sugar, baby. Nice. Don't drink your calories. That's how Satan gets you.
Not hard. Not alcoholized. Just 0 calories.
Correct.
All right, then. This is our backlog accomplishment with Respawn and Friends review, also known as our BARF review of Celeste 64, Fragments of the Mountain. Joining me this evening, you already heard him crack a cold one just a little bit earlier, is the one and only Chad Michaelinis.
Crack that sack. That's Santa's motto.
And joining me as well is the man of the hour, Adam Gumbert.
It's the hour and it's mine.
And, of course, joining us, normally he's on the ones and twos, but today he's both on the ones and twos and here in person, which is to say that you can see his face on camera, Joel Campos.
I'm here. Go check out Kanye's wife's dress at the Grammys right now.
Can you legally call that a dress?
I don't know. I don't know what you call that. You call that fabric.
Personally,
it's fabric.
There's just, like, it's impossible to see anything under there. I hope that Kanye West removes some of those layers. She's just getting smothered at this point.
I just watched that whole clip, and, like, he just, like, walks away from her, and she looks so awkward, like, and uncomfortable. But yeah, regardless. Celeste, huh?
Before we get Celeste, man. Before we get into the swing of things, remember that you can catch regular episodes of the Respawning Fire podcast live on twitch.tv/AffableIdiots every Monday evening at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, as well as on YouTube and podcast services the following Wednesday. But this is no regular episode of the show. This is our BARF review for January of 2025. At the beginning of every month, we ask you to go to patreon.com/respawningfire to vote on a game for us to play throughout the month. And this past January, we asked you to choose between 4 short and quick indie games that all released in the month of January in years past. The 4 games in question were Pony Island, the original, Pizza Tower, Turnip Boy Robs a Bank, and Celeste 64, Fragments of the Mountain, and you all unanimously agreed to vote on Celeste 64. I actually don't believe that that is the definition of that word. Unanimously would suggest that everybody voted only on Celeste 64, but I believe that it was a little bit split, but Celeste 64 did win. Little information about Celeste 64 and the Celeste series as a whole. The game comes courtesy of Extremely OK Games, formerly known as Maddie Makes Games, which was founded by the venerable Maddie Thorson. Their first game was, of course, Towerfall, a multiplayer fighting game that originally released back for, Chad, what did it release for?
Everything?
It released for the Ouya. Sorry, Adam, I would have gone to you, but I saw your hand a little bit too late. I apologize.
Chad's favorite console.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's
it
right.
certainly was.
Ooh,
back in 2013. For a period of time, it was legitimately... Oh, and now Chad's gone. Turns out saying Ouya on this console gets you banned from the internet. It was legitimately one of the Ouya's few killer apps, one of the games that people could point to as, this is one of the reasons why you should own an Ouya. And then, as Chad suggested, it eventually went everywhere else. Their next major
game was a PlayStation Plus free game as well, which is how I have it. Yep.
Wow. That was, I mean, kind of at the point where I stopped paying attention to PlayStation Plus, but that's pretty cool. Their next game was, of course, 2018's Celeste, which I don't feel like I need to go super in depth into, because chances are, if you're listening to this podcast, you probably already know what Celeste is. If you somehow are the one person in the world that has not heard of it, Celeste is, of course, the very challenging indie platforming game about a young woman called Madeline attempting to climb the mountain Celeste. Madeline suffers from anxiety and depression, and much of the game serves as an allegory for her attempting to come to terms with these parts of herself and using the self-acceptance, man, why can I not pronounce that word, to have the energy to complete the climb. It was an indie game that, you know, in addition to winning tons of accolades and awards, I really feel kind of crossed over and became something of a big mainstream hit as well. I feel like with a lot of these indie games that we all love and appreciate, like I've seldom like met someone like a casual gamer who's like, oh man, I really loved, I don't know, Inscription, for example. These are games that people within our sphere really love, but they don't necessarily cross over and become hugely successful. But I really feel like a lot of hardcore and less than hardcore gamers got in on this game, which is impressive, just given how challenging of a platformer Celeste is. Real quick, what is everyone else's experience with Celeste, starting with Joel?
I love Celeste. I played through the whole thing, and that typically is not the kind of game that's for me. I love the story and art style so much that I just chugged through it. And that game gets pretty emotional, which is pretty cool for a game like that. Like, you wouldn't expect something that looks like that to get as emotional and deep as it does. And it does a great job of doing that. But yeah, I love that game. I have the soundtrack on vinyl. That's how much I like it.
Wow. Nice.
I should have grabbed it.
Chad.
I played Celeste when it came out on Switch at the suggestion of, I think it was Colin and Greg on Kind of Funny, that convinced me that it was something really special to pick up, and I fucking loved it. And I did not get all the strawberries, and I did not do all the extra super hard content, but I did beat the game. And like Joel, I fucking love that soundtrack. In fact, there's also a great like piano melodic, like, it's called Prescription for Sleep, Celeste, version of that to like go to sleep to, like listen to while you go to sleep, and it's real good. So I've played that 1,000 times.
Nice. And Adam.
I've played the first 30 or 45 minutes of Celeste twice. It is installed on my console for years at a time. I've just never finished it.
Oh, so you've never beaten it?
No. Again, I played the exact same 30 or 45 minutes two times. So I'm like, this is cool.
Okay,
I'll get back to this. And then I just never do.
I'm interested to get to your thoughts on Celeste 64 then. I will say very quickly, a little while ago, probably like a year ago or so, we did an episode of Respawning Fire where we went through like a basic list of all the games that I played through in like years past. And Celeste 64 was really interesting in that game, you know, released in 2018. And 2018 was a year where I wasn't really playing a whole lot of games. I wasn't really trying to kind of keep up with what was new. And Celeste was like one of the few exceptions that year where everyone was talking about it. I was like, I need to use my Switch for something because I barely use this thing. And I ended up playing it and beating it to completion on my Switch and really enjoyed it. But like Chad, I did not go for every single strawberry, every single optional side objective, did not mess with too much of the post-game content, and did not touch the like later expansions that came after the fact, but still really, really love it and really respect and appreciate it. Respect its message. Sometimes words are hard, guys, and I'm sorry about that. I'm sorry. Now that's Celeste. Let's talk a little bit about Celeste 64, released on January 29th, 2024. The game was developed during a week-long game jam to celebrate the original Celeste's 6-year anniversary and serves as basically a semi-sequel to it. It is a Super Mario 64-style 3D platformer that sees Madeline return to the wastes of Celeste Mountain and attempt to collect the 30 strawberries that are scattered about it. Now, I know I've been talking a lot, but I want to get my overhead thoughts on this game out first, because I feel like it'll be interesting to kind of hear your guys' experience with the game coming off of mine. Halfway through my time with Celeste 64, I thought that I was going to come into this podcast kind of down on this game. I thought that I was going to come in here being like, guys, I don't know, but this game is not nearly as finished or as polished as I thought it was going to be. I don't think that this game, I understand why they chose to just release this game on itch.io and not push for like a full wider console release. This game certainly in parts speaks to the, you know, level of talent that's at play with extremely okay games, but otherwise is not all that great. And then I discovered about an hour and a half into playing the game with 20 strawberries to my name that you can climb in this game. And instantly, with a finger snap, everything clicked into place and this game became much better.
Holy shit.
That's hilarious.
So, yeah. Somehow, because the problem with this game, and this is not a problem, I say problem in air quotes, is, Celeste, the original game, a very challenging platformer, a game that became very popular with, that crowd of platform lovers, people that love to speedrun games, take advantage of exploits to complete them as fast as possible. There was an expansion that was released for Celeste a little while ago that forced you to take advantage of, various exploits in the game to complete it. You have to take advantage of a thing called wolf time, for example, where there's a microsecond after you leave the ground where Madeline can still jump in the air or something or other. It's been a little while. And so, Celeste 64 opens up. You have this tower in front of you that you have to pass over. And I'm like, I don't know how to pass over this. I tried jumping in all sorts of combinations. Eventually, I managed to just basically do a jump just right where I managed to jump, dash, and finally get on top of it. And I'm like, wow, that was a very challenging first obstacle in this game. But knowing how challenging the series is as a whole, knowing what some of the later Celeste DLC demanded of gamers, I feel like this is just par for the course. There's definitely not some secret climbing mechanic that I didn't discover that I should have used to easily pass over this first obstacle. And so I basically spent an hour and a half playing the game, assuming there was nothing like that could make my life infinitely easier. With the climbing mechanic, I think this game is a very solid tribute. It is, I can still understand the reason for not releasing this full bore on consoles and keeping it exclusive to itch.io, but I thought it was a very lovely and well-crafted tribute, and I enjoyed myself very much with it.
And I can't remember whether you mentioned this or not. This was the creators of the game Celeste, hey, let's take a week off and see if we can make something in 3D. And it was literally made in a week. So this was not a full scale production. And then, released on GitHub and itch.io and that kind of shit. So,
yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to say is I feel like Cozy's coming at it as if it's a full game, but it's really just a side project. And which is what I think is what makes indie devs and indie games so cool is they decided just to do this on a whim, kind of for fun. Maybe it was for a break from whatever else they were working on. And it plays really well. I think that everything about it is really cool. And yeah, most game devs, they probably do stuff like this for their IP and stuff. And we just never sees the light of day. But the fact that it's an indie dev, they can just be oh yeah, this is good enough to just show people what we were able to do, with Celeste. And yeah, I think it's awesome. I would love a full game like this because if they took the time to make, I don't know, triple in length in this and put more detail in it, really flesh out this world, I think that it would be a really cool game and a ton of fun.
Chad.
Let me tell you about a little movie that came out in 1994.
Okay.
It is a 2D animated film about a lion.
We're back.
Whose name,
the dinosaur movie,
in Swahili means king. He is Mufasa, the Lion King.
Oh,
released by Disney.
I thought it was
in 1994.
I totally thought it was The Page Master.
It is not The Page Master, starring Macaulay Culkin. No, this movie was released in 1994, and it was amazing. Had great music, had a great story that kind of ripped off Hamlet that you cared about. And then 30 years later, let me tell you about another movie that comes out. It's got all the same characters in it. It's got music that kind of sounds similar a little bit to that one, but it's 3 dimensions now. It's in 3D. And this movie is called not The Lion King, but the original Swahili title, Mufasa. For some reason, this movie wasn't bad. I didn't like watching it. I was just this isn't The Lion King. And that's how I felt about this game until I had the context in my brain. At the very, very end of it, where you read the sign and it's like, by the way, this is a game jam. We did it in like a week. And thanks everyone for doing it. And it was like, oh, that puts all of this into perspective so much more. And then also the fact that I didn't play it, but I watched a 33-minute YouTube run, 100% run on someone else playing it instead. Because my computer died last week. And so I don't have a computer to play it on. So
Wait, did this kill it?
no, this did not kill it. I don't know what it is. I just woke up and it is now just a beautiful aluminum brick. So
Oh no.
yeah.
Another thing about
smaller
this game,
aluminum brick coming next week. So
to
we're
go
good.
back to Cozy's point of him not realizing that you could climb the walls. It doesn't really hold your hand in terms of teaching you what to do. Like you really got to kind of find the signs that tell you.
As a person, I think, as a person that has the most experience with this mini game of all of us, Joel, was there a sign in the game that I missed that explained that you could climb walls? Because there are a bunch of other signs that are like, hey, if you do like a quick turn, you can do like a higher jump in the air. You can do a long jump. There were signs for things like that, but I don't remember there being a tutorial sign for the climbing.
That I'm not 100% sure. I haven't played this since it came out last year, so I don't fully remember. I just remember like there was stuff in the game I didn't realize I could do until I stumbled across the sign for it, and I was like, oh, I should go back to this other area and try that to get to where I wanted to before.
How did you get past the very first thing in the game where you have to climb that wall and then you jump to grandma?
You like I mean, I can't tell you off the top of the head the exact timing of the jump, but like I just jumped in a very specific way at the height of the jump. I did a dash, and like when you dash, you gain a little bit of elevation, and that just managed to put me over the edge.
Because that first wall, I was like, let me press all these buttons. Oh, there's the climb. That was me. But that's crazy that you got that far in without needing it. Interesting.
I can't remember since 2018, but like, could you climb in the regular Celeste game? Are they just assuming that you could do that everyone would know because they played the original game?
My memory is that you
climb.
could, but only in like specific circumstances. Like you had to be like up against a climbable wall. And this game, that is something like you can imagine if they were to flesh this out into a full game, that they would like distinguish between like walls that you can climb and walls that you can't climb to make that.
Well, they did.
More clear.
Ones with spikes you cannot climb.
I mean, that's true.
Fair point.
Yep.
That's true. Adam, as the one person here who is the least experienced with Celeste, what did you think of this game?
I think it was interesting. It was, again, I also went into it knowing it was a thing that they made in a week. So I'm like, that's pretty cool. That's pretty impressive. I like how it is, obviously, it's called Celeste 64. So it is heavily inspired by platformers of that era, but actually feels good and feels like a modern video game compared to an old video game that doesn't feel good. So like that, this is like a cool novel thing. I like it. It feels cool. The controls work. The camera actually is usable. It was the main thing. And, I enjoyed my 50 minutes it took me to finish it. I mean, I know the story stuff, so getting it to the end and being like, oh, here's that story beat. I'm like, yeah, cool.
I was going to ask about that. Like when you got to Madeline, were you like, wait, why is there like another evil Madeline here? But you understood that stuff.
No, I know it's all a metaphor for anxiety. I get it. But yeah, so playing a throwback, but that feels modern from a team that just gave you something for free. I thought it was pretty decent. And again, it also didn't take up a lot of my time. I literally finished it in 45 minutes. So I can't be mad at that.
Did you all play keyboard and mouse, or did you all play with a controller? Because the person I watched, it looked like it was tough to control.
Controller for me, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I played with a DualSense controller.
Okay.
I played with an NES controller.
Oh, wow.
Played with an
how
arcade
did that work?
joystick.
Oh, okay.
I'm just kidding. I played with an Xbox controller.
Oh, man. I would be fascinated to see how that works. I will say real quick, it's not like there's that much to say about this game, so we can kind of wrap this up. When you get to the cassette levels, I was like, I do appreciate this game's attempt at paying tribute to the levels without flood in Super Mario Sunshine, which you guys are you guys familiar with what I'm referring to?
No. I've
Yeah,
only played
bad
the first,
game
like,
from 20 years
hour
ago.
of
That's
Mario
all I
Sunshine.
remember.
Yeah. In Super Mario Sunshine, you obviously have access to Flood, which is like a backpack super water gun mechanical thing that allows Mario to squirt water everywhere. Just squirt, 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 and wiping away all the gunk. But there are a couple levels every here and there where Bowser Jr. Takes away Flood, and you basically just have to platform around in 3D traditional style. And those levels, like the kind of doo-wop style music, is like a direct tribute to the like music, and like the kind of overall feel of those levels are like a direct tribute to those levels from Super Mario Sunshine. I thought that was really funny because those Sunshine levels, very, very challenging. There's a lot of, sorry, this is a quick little tangent, but I need to exercise it from my system. There are a lot of people out there that are like, man, Super Mario Sunshine's an okay game, but I love the levels where they remove Flood from you. And it's like, oh yeah, why do you like those levels? And it's like, well, you know, like you're so reliant on Flood the entire time in that game, but then they take away Flood from you, and all of a sudden you're just so helpless, and you realize how dependent you were on Flood. And I thought those levels were just really cool and challenging. And I've always really been kind of annoyed by that, because it's like, those levels are like legitimately in Super Mario Sunshine are legitimately like very, very challenging by like the standard of any level in any Mario game. You remove the whole thing of not having Flood from the equation, and like they're just really difficult and unfair. And I think that the whole excuse of, oh well, you're only bad at it because you don't have Flood, is just, I think, a little misinformed. But also the other thing too is it's like, oh man, Super Mario Sunshine's pretty good, and the best levels in the game are the levels where you don't have Flood. It's like, just admit that you don't like Super Mario Sunshine, because Super Mario Sunshine is the Flood. Just say that you like Super Mario 64 and move on. But anyways, that's a discussion for another time. Eventually, one day, we'll do Super Mario Sunshine for a BARF review, but Nintendo refuses to make it easily digitally available on modern systems.
I got him on Switch.
So do I.
You did, but yeah, I did not, though. And now there's no way for me to do so legally.
No, you never will.
Yeah, you never will.
We'll see.
They
Oh, you
warned
did-
you it's going into the Disney Vault.
Yeah, you mean you didn't buy this game in a 3-month window? How dare you, Cozy?
No, I could not. I could not. Are there any other things that we want to go over? Any other things that we want to discuss about Celeste 64?
I feel like it's mostly covered. Again, I like short games. Doesn't leave a lot of talk about sometimes, but quality product that took very little time to make. I will go back and finish the original one of these days.
Yeah. One last thing I will say, I'd meant to bring this up earlier, but it slipped my mind, and I figure I might as well bring it up now. The specific period in which we're recording this episode is very interesting because the game that Extremely OK Games was working on, Earthblade, actually got canceled. It was... we don't have to go into like the full story of exactly what happened there now, but very, very tragic. I know a lot of people were really looking forward to this game. It was a game that I very briefly considered as like, I should probably draft this on my fantasy critic for this year, because knowing how well Celeste reviewed, this game is probably for certain going to be a banger. But they announced just earlier in January that they didn't feel like there was a route forward for this game that wouldn't be just incredibly stressful and not great for the team. And so, yeah, I feel it's a little sad, but you know, knowing how solid this game was, given it was made in a single week, I'd imagine that whatever they work on next will probably be great all the same. And hopefully we'll look back on this and be like, well, that was a little road bump, but in the end, it was on the road to something even greater. And with that, we've arrived at the end of tonight's BARF review. As was said at the top of the show, remember, as always, you can catch regular episodes of the Respawning Fire podcast live on twitch.tv/affableidiots every Monday evening at 8:30 p.m. EST, as well as on YouTube and podcast services the following Wednesday. And of course, you can also look forward to this episode going up on YouTube and podcast services as soon as well. But that's not all. Now that January's BARF game is out of the way, we're ready to jump into our BARF game for the month of February, inspired by Valentine's Day.
My birthday month.
Ooh, my birthday month too. Maybe we'll talk about it soon on a secret special episode. Inspired by Valentine's Day, which at this point is less than 2 weeks away, our own Joel Campos assembled 4 games that all feature some form of split screen or cooperative play for you and that special someone to play together, like Kanye and his just overdressed wife at the VMAs. They are
How dare you.
Unravel, Portal 2,
Grammys.
Overcooked, exclamation point 2, and Untitled Goose Game. As of the live recording of this episode right now, there is still a full day left to vote on which you want us to play. The poll will be closing just before we do our regular episode of the show on Monday, February 3rd. So if you're watching this live, go and cast your vote because you still have an opportunity to do so. Chad, Adam, Joel, thank you so much once again for being such wonderful co-hosts alongside me. People wanted to find you online. Where could they do so? And is there anything that you're up to that you would want to plug, Joel?
You could follow me on Blue Sky, Campo63 over there. That's pretty much it. Just hanging out.
Chad.
I would say Blue Sky, except for I haven't opened that app in a couple of weeks. Actually, no, I did open it a couple days ago because you tagged me in something, and that was the first time I opened it in weeks. And then I realized I haven't looked at any social media except for Wario64 notifications in like a month and a half. And you know what? It's pretty good.
Yeah.
I also do watch TikTok, so you can find me on my phone. Send me TikToks. Yeah.
And Adam.
Yeah, just look me up, Adam Gumby on Blue Sky, and that's probably the place to be at the moment.
Hell yeah. And with that, we'd like to thank you once again for tuning into Respawning Fire. We'll see you next time.